Episode 57. Time bleeds. The loophole appears where nothing should give. Ethan notices it first as resistance. Not pressure. Not silence. Not attention. Resistance. He is standing on a pedestrian bridge at dusk, watching traffic move beneath him in clean, predictable lanes. The city has been unstable for days now, not loudly, but diffusely. Microcorrections misfiring. Delays without cause. People hesitating at moments that should be automatic. All of it traces back to negotiation. Not one deal. Many. Too many. Time has been accommodating humans for weeks now. Negotiations layered over negotiations. Lies routing debt sideways. Choices collapsing futures faster than the system can reindex them. Ethan feels it as drag in the present. When he shifts his weight, the sensation arrives a fraction late. When a car honks below, the sound seems to smear slightly, like it has been stretched thin before reaching him. This is new. Not distortion. Fatigue. At 3:07, the minute does not pass cleanly. The stutters. Not a skip. A hesitation. The traffic lights beneath the bridge flicker yellow for half a second too long. A driver brakes harder than necessary. Another swerves, startled. No crash. But the correction arrives late. Ethan grips the railing. This is not a failure of control. This is strain. Time is still enforcing balance. But it is doing so with reduced precision. Overuse. That is the word that settles in Ethan's mind. Negotiation was never meant to be common. Deals were edge cases. Lies were noise. But humans have learned the rules too quickly. They are negotiating in parallel now. Trading memory for survival. Attachment for stability. Futures for present alignment. Each deal honored. Each cost paid. And together they are pulling at the same structure. Ethan understands the danger immediately. Systems tolerate force. They tolerate resistance. They do not tolerate load beyond design. He walks off the bridge and into the crowd, moving carefully, feeling for the limits of the present. When he stops suddenly, the world overshoots slightly, then snaps back. Rubber banding. Time is compensating manually. That should not be possible. At 3:07, the hum returns, weaker than before. Not interest. Not audit. Effort. Ethan's stomach tightens. This is not mercy. This is vulnerability. And vulnerability changes everything. He follows the sensation toward a side street where the air feels heavier, denser, like humidity before rain. The buildings here are older, their foundations settled unevenly. Time has always struggled in places like this. That is where the loophole lives. A woman stands in the doorway of a closed shop, hands pressed against her temples. She looks pale, unsteady. Ethan approaches cautiously. "You okay?" he asks. She looks up, startled. "It won't decide," she says. "What won't?" "The minute," she whispers. "It keeps starting and stopping." Ethan feels the present buckle. He steps closer and feels it himself now. Pocket, not absence. Overuse has thinned the system here so badly that enforcement has slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. That is the loophole. Inside the pocket, choice is complete without immediate collapse. Lies hold longer. Negotiated outcomes do not trigger instant compensation. A temporary gap between action and accounting. The gain is obvious. Survival without immediate cost. Ethan understands why people would rush toward this if they knew it existed. He also understands why it cannot last. Time does not bleed like a living thing. It bleeds like a system under load. The woman grips his arm suddenly. "It hurts," she says. "But it's quiet." Ethan nods gently. "It won't stay quiet." She doesn't seem to hear him. Inside the pocket, her breathing slows. Her pain dulls. Her posture relaxes. The present thickens just enough to feel merciful. But Ethan sees the truth beneath it. The system is lagging. Not forgiving. Debt is still accruing. Just delayed. At 3:07, the pocket shudders. Not collapsing. Straining. Ethan feels a sharp sensation in his chest, like static discharging across muscle. Not pain. Feedback. Time is reallocating resources. The pocket narrows. The woman gasps as the quiet recedes. "What did you do?" she asks him. Ethan steps back. "Nothing," he says truthfully. The pocket contracts further, snapping back into normal flow with a sickening lurch. The woman staggers, then steadies herself against the doorframe. Her pain returns, sharper, compounded. The cost arrives with interest. She screams. People turn. Someone rushes over. Another calls for help. The system has corrected. Late. Violently. Ethan steps away as the crowd forms. This is the truth. Overuse of negotiation does not create freedom. Creates latency. And latency converts debt into shock. At 3:07, Ethan feels something else. A new sensation. Not attention. Exposure. The system is not angry. It is wounded. Not emotionally. Structurally. Time is losing its ability to localize correction cleanly. That means escalation is inevitable. Not in power. In method. Ethan walks quickly now, mind racing. Season 4 is not coming because humans rebel. It is coming because the system can no longer afford finesse. Negotiation has worked too well. Lies have spread too far. Choices have erased too many futures too quickly. Time is bleeding efficiency. And when systems bleed, they do not ask for mercy. They switch modes. Ethan reaches his apartment and locks the door behind him. The room feels thinner than it should. Sounds overlap slightly. His reflection in the mirror lags again. Just barely. The loophole has closed. But the strain remains. At 3:07, the silence arrives fractured. Not one silence. Many. Some seconds stretch. Others compress. Ethan sits on the floor, breathing steadily. He understands the function now. This episode is not about victory. It is about proof. Proof that time can be strained. Proof that negotiation has limits. Proof that vulnerability is not weakness. It is a warning. Time is bleeding. And when it stops bleeding, it will cauterize. The bleeding does not stop. It redistributes. Ethan feels it the moment he wakes, before thought, before orientation. Not pressure. Not silence. A faint tremor in continuity. Like standing on ground that has not finished deciding where it belongs. The room is intact. The walls hold. Light enters at the correct angle. But the intervals are wrong. Seconds feel uneven. One breath takes too long. The next ends too quickly. His heartbeat sinks and desyncs in alternating rhythms. This is not malfunction. It is triage. Time is reallocating itself. He sits up slowly, careful not to introduce shock into a system already under strain. His movements feel slightly overdamped, as if the present is resisting acceleration. When he stands, the floor seems to meet his feet a fraction late. Latency again. But no pocket this time. This is everywhere. At 3:07, the minute does not arrive as a single block. It fragments. Ethan feels it as a sequence of micropauses stitched together poorly. The clock advances normally, but the experience of passage splinters into uneven segments. The system is no longer smoothing transitions. It is prioritizing throughput. Ethan understands the implication instantly. Finesse is being abandoned. Precision costs too much. Outside, the city sounds different. Not louder, harsher. Conversations cut off abruptly. Laughter stops mid-breath. Car horns sound too sharp, as if the decay phase has been removed. Doors slam harder than intended. Human behavior is adjusting subconsciously to shorten tolerances. People rush decisions. They do not know why. Ethan walks through it, feeling the world scrape against itself. This is what bleeding looks like at scale. Not collapse, compression. At a crosswalk, the signal changes too fast. An elderly man hesitates and nearly steps into traffic. A stranger grabs his arm just in time. No one remarks on how close it was. Near misses are increasing. That is how the system buys time. By letting probability do the work. Ethan feels something else now. Not attention. Not exposure. Constraint. The freedom introduced by loopholes is gone. Negotiations still exist, but they are coarser. Terms feel heavier. Costs arrive faster, less precisely allocated. The system is rounding. The 307 Ethan stops walking. He closes his eyes and listens. He hears something he has never heard before. A seam, not silence. A seam between instants where time is being stitched too tightly. The sound is almost like fabric under tension. A faint internal tearing that never quite becomes audible. Time is not infinite. That is the truth Season 3 has been circling. It is abundant but not limitless. Negotiation consumed slack. Lies consumed trust. Choices consumed futures faster than indexing could keep up. The bleed is not weakness. It is exposure of capacity. Ethan opens his eyes. Across the street, a woman is arguing with a man. Voices rising quickly. Escalation too fast for the content of the disagreement. Emotion is being amplified because temporal buffers are gone. People are feeling consequences sooner. Shorter fuses. Shallower pauses. The system is accelerating resolution to reduce load. At 307, the pressure returns. For the first time in weeks, it is not diffuse. It is directional. Not at Ethan. Through him. He staggers slightly, hand bracing against a wall. The sensation is not painful. It is informative. Time is no longer routing around stable individuals. It is bypassing them. Stability has become irrelevant. Throughput is the priority. This is the pivot. Ethan understands now why vulnerability is not mercy. It is warning. The system has identified negotiation as an unsustainable behavior. So it is preparing to remove the option. Not by forbidding it, by making it too expensive. At work, chaos appears without escalation. Systems refresh incorrectly. Files update twice. Decisions made in the morning are reversed by afternoon without explanation. Management issues vague instructions. Move faster. Decide sooner. Stop waiting for alignment. Language is adapting to the new reality. Ethan watches it unfold without intervening. There is nothing to fix. The bleed has progressed past intervention. At 307, a siren cuts off abruptly, mid-wail. No follow-up. No resolution. Just absence. Ethan feels cold. That is not how correction works. That is how abandonment works. Time is choosing where not to spend itself. Some events will no longer be smoothed. They will simply happen. This is not cruelty. It is economics. That night, Ethan dreams. Not symbolically, structurally. He sees a grid of moments, once evenly spaced, now compressed into dense clusters with wide gaps between them. Where moments cluster, reality is sharp and decisive. Where gaps form, unpredictability reigns. The system is sacrificing continuity to preserve function. He wakes sweating. At 307, the minute arrives as a blunt block. No subtlety, no nuance, just passage. Ethan understands the final function of this episode now. Time does not bleed forever. Bleeding is temporary. It reveals where reinforcement is required. When the system stabilizes again, it will not restore the old flexibility. It will harden. Negotiation will still exist, but only at scale. Individual bargains will no longer matter. Costs will be collective. Corrections will be broad. Season 4 is not about rebellion. It is about collision. Because once time stops bleeding, it will no longer listen closely enough to care who it hurts. Ethan stands at the window and watches the city grind forward under tightened tolerances. Fewer pauses. Fewer chances to reconsider. People are already adapting. They always do. But adaptation has a price. At 307, Ethan does not look at the clock. He does not need to. He feels the minute slam into place and move on. Time is sealing itself. The wound is closing. And whatever flexibility once allowed humans to negotiate their way through correction is being burned away. Time does not forgive. Time cauterizes.